All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving into some seriously deep waters. We're tackling Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious.
Oh, yeah, this is a fascinating one.
It really is. We've got an excerpt here that explains it, and let me tell you, this is going to change how you see the world. Get ready to understand why humans across cultures dream of similar symbols, why those myths pop up everywhere. It's going to get really interesting.
It's wild how Jung's idea, it's not just about your own personal memories. He's talking about something much, much deeper, like we're all connected to this huge well of human experience.
Whoa, okay, so not just my memories, but like everyone's.
Right. Almost like a hidden library.
Okay, a library, I can kind of picture that. But instead of books, what's on the shelves?
Instead of books, it's filled with archetypes.
Archetypes, right. Those blueprints or patterns, the ones that shape how we see the world.
Exactly. Not actual stories, but more like templates for understanding things, even our behaviors.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to those universal myths and symbols. Can you give me an example? What about, like, the hero archetype? You see that everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. The hero, right. It speaks to that human desire, to grow, to overcome challenges, to come out the other side transformed. Think Star Wars, Harry Potter.
Classic.
Total classics. But it's more than just those stories. It resonates with something deep within us. Think about your own life, those challenges you faced, how you've changed. Maybe you'll find you're living your own hero's journey.
Whoa, that's Ted. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, but if the hero's all about facing challenges and growing, what about the opposite? Every hero needs a villain, right?
Right. And that brings us to the shadow.
Just shadow.
And it's not just about bad guys. It's more about those parts of ourselves that we, kind of repress, the parts we deem unacceptable.
Oh, okay. You mean like our fears, our anger?
Yeah, those things. And even our hidden desires.
Ooh, that gets a bit uncomfortable. So you're saying, like, we all have this shadow self lurking around inside us.
You could say that, yes. And ignoring it, that can be a problem. It can, manifest in unhealthy ways.
So it's not exactly something you want to ignore, but there's more to it, right? It's not all bad.
No, not all bad. The interesting thing is the shadow also has this huge potential, this potential for growth. If we confront it, if we integrate those hidden parts, that's how we move towards wholeness.
So it's not about pretending it doesn't exist, but like learning from it, taming it.
It is. It's like that saying, the greatest battle is the one fought within ourselves. The shadow archetype, it's an invitation, an invitation to face those inner demons, to acknowledge those darker aspects and find a way to make them part of our whole selves.
This is deep stuff.
Yeah.
So how do we actually see those shadow qualities, not just in ourselves, but in other people too?
Well, think about those times when someone acts in a way that surprises even them. A burst of anger, maybe, or when someone, sabotages their own success. Could be the shadow emerging.
Interesting. So it's those moments where you're like, wait, did I just do that? And maybe those negative emotions are actually trying to tell us something.
They are. They're like pointers. They're pointing us towards something we need to address within ourselves. And the shadow isn't always bad. It's more that it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be integrated. And by doing that, we can, tap into a greater sense of wholeness, a greater sense of authenticity.
Okay, so we've got the hero and the shadow. And this is making me think of another archetype that pops up constantly.
Mm-hmm.
The mother. I mean, we see this everywhere. Mythology, religion, even those commercials,
Yeah.
Nurturing, caring.
Oh, absolutely. The mother archetype, right. It represents those core human needs to be cared for, to be nourished, to be protected. But like all archetypes, it's not just one thing. It's a spectrum.
So there are different aspects to it.
Yeah, it can be that loving, nurturing aspect of motherhood, but it can also be the smothering side, maybe the overprotective side.
Oh, I get it. Not just about a literal mother, but those themes of support, or even the lack of support. But how does this all tie back to those shared myths? Are you telling me it's just coincidence that cultures all over the world, even those separated by oceans, they have similar stories, like about dragons or serpents?
That's where the idea of the collective unconscious gets really, really interesting. If you imagine this shared wellspring of human experience, it makes sense that some archetypes, some symbols, they would emerge across cultures.
Sounds like we're all pulling from the same source. That's
Sure.
crazy. But what about dreams? Where do they fit into this collective unconscious thing?
Jung thought dreams were one of the most direct ways to access it. He noticed that patients, they would dream of symbols, of motifs, things they'd never even seen before.
Wait, so they're dreaming about stuff they've never encountered in real life.
Right, suggesting they were tapping into something deeper, something shared.
So my dreams. They could be tapping into this vast library of human experience. That's kind of blowing my mind right now.
It's a pretty compelling thought, isn't it? And it raises all sorts of questions about consciousness, about how we're all connected and how symbols can like transcend time and culture.
My head is spinning. This is a lot to absorb. But why should the average person care? Like, what's the point of all this collective unconscious stuff for my daily life?
That's a fantastic question, and one we'll definitely explore further. But for now, here's a thought. Understanding the collective unconscious, it can help us see the world, even ourselves, in a whole new light. It can give us insights into why we do the things we do, our motivations, those patterns that keep popping up. And it can help us understand that shared human experience, the one that connects us all, even with all our differences.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What are some ways this theory can actually, help us navigate life?
Well, let's start with thinking about how the hero's journey can help us understand personal growth and that resilience we all need.
Okay, resilience and personal growth. I like it. But I'm not sure I'm seeing how this hero's journey stuff applies to my everyday life. It's not like I'm out there slaying dragons.
Well, maybe you are in a way. Remember, the hero's journey, it's all about facing those challenges, overcoming obstacles, emerging transformed. And that pattern, it repeats even in the small stuff.
You mean like my daily commute, my inbox full of emails? Those are my dragons.
Exactly. It's all about how we frame those everyday things. Instead of just, resisting that grind, what if we saw those daily frustrations as like mini tests? Little opportunities to practice patience, problem solving, heck, even humor.
So my traffic jam is actually training for when I have to face down a real metaphorical monster? Okay, I can get behind that.
That's the spirit. And this applies to those inner struggles too. Remember the shadow? We talked about how ignoring it can be, well, pretty harmful.
Right, right. But how do we actually, integrate those shadow qualities?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say, face your demons, but what does that look like in real life?
It starts with acknowledging them. Those less than ideal parts of ourselves. We all have them. The jealousy, the insecurity, those judgmental thoughts that pop up. Instead of trying to just shove them down, what if we got curious about them?
So instead of silencing my inner critic, I should be like, hey, what's up? What are you trying to tell me?
Exactly. Have a conversation with it. Ask yourself, what's this feeling trying to tell me? What need is it trying to meet? A lot of times those shadow qualities, they come from a place of, hurt or unmet needs.
Okay, so maybe my jealousy is actually saying, hey, I want more connection. I want more recognition.
Exactly. And by understanding that root, you can start to, address it in a healthier way. Instead of sabotaging others, maybe you channel that energy into, I don't know, improving your own work or seeking up support.
This is making me think about relationships too. Do archetypes play a role in how we, interact with other people?
Oh, absolutely. Think about that classic opposites attract thing. Often we find ourselves drawn to people who embody those qualities that we've repressed in ourselves.
So it's like our subconscious is trying to get our attention, bringing those shadow aspects to light.
It's possible. And this doesn't mean those relationships are, doomed to fail, but it does highlight the potential for some serious growth. By recognizing those archetypal patterns, we can start to understand our own needs, our own motivations so much better.
All this talk about the shadow, it makes me wonder, is there any scientific evidence for this collective unconscious thing? Or is it all a bit too woo-woo?
It's true that it's hard to measure scientifically. You can't exactly, put it under a microscope. But there's some interesting research happening. It feels like epigenetics, for example, are starting to suggest that we inherit more than just, physical traits.
Epigenetics. Remind me what that is again.
It's basically the study of how things in our environment, they can actually influence our genes. It's not just about the genes themselves, but how they're switched on or off.
Wait, so are you saying that, traumatic experiences could actually affect our genes and then get passed down to our kids?
It's definitely something researchers are looking into. And if it's true, it could explain how some fears, some behaviors, even ways of seeing the world could be transmitted, across generations.
Whoa, okay, that's heavy. So we're not just individuals then, we're carrying our ancestors' baggage too.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? And it adds a whole other layer to this idea of a collective unconscious. We're connected not just to the people around us, but to those who came before us too.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on things. I have to say, this is a lot to process. It feels really important, like it could actually shift how we understand ourselves, how we see the world.
That's the power of these ideas. And it's not about, having all the answers. It's more about staying curious, staying open to exploring these deeper layers of, what it means to be human.
I am definitely feeling curious. I have so many more questions, like how does this apply to creativity? Do artists tap into the collective unconscious when they create?
That's a fantastic question, and one we'll explore right after this.
Okay, so artists tapping into the collective unconscious, is that like a real thing or just a nice idea?
It's a question people have been debating for ages, but think about it. How else can you explain how certain themes, certain symbols, even emotions, they can resonate across cultures and time periods? Like, take the image of a serpent or a dragon. It shows up in mythology and art all over the world, and it usually carries a similar meaning.
That's true. You can't just chalk that up to coincidence, right? But are you saying that, like, artists are just downloading these images from some kind of universal, I don't know, database?
Maybe not downloading exactly, but Jung, he believed that when we're creating something, we're tapping into something bigger than just our own minds. It's like we're being inspired by this deep well of shared human experience.
Whether we know it or not.
Right, exactly.
So maybe when a musician writes a song that just gives me chills, or I see a painting that makes me feel something deep, it's not just their talent, it's something else, something connected to this shared human experience.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. And it's not just about, high art either. Think about those ads you see, the movies you watch, even those memes that go viral. They're often playing on those same archetypal patterns, those universal desires and fears, the stuff that resonates with us on a depth level.
It's like those creators have figured out the secret code of the collective unconscious, even if they don't know it. But let's flip that around for a second. If art can tap into the collective unconscious, can we use art to understand ourselves better, to heal those shadow parts of ourselves?
Absolutely. Engaging with art, whether you're creating it or just experiencing it, can be a really powerful way to learn about yourself. Pay attention to the art that really moves you, the stuff that triggers strong emotions. What is it about those pieces that speaks to you? What stories are they telling you about yourself?
So it's like art is holding up a mirror.
Exactly. It's reflecting those parts of ourselves, maybe those parts we haven't even acknowledged yet.
And it can give us a safe place to explore those shadow parts too, right?
Exactly. Art can help us deal with those tough emotions, but in a way that feels less scary. Think about how music helps us get through grief, or how a powerful movie can help us, make sense of the complicated stuff happening in the world.
It's incredible how much power art has. But before we wrap things up, I have to ask, if this collective unconscious is so powerful, if it's shaping our dreams, our myths, our art, can we change it? Or are we just, I don't know, stuck with these patterns that have been playing out forever?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I don't think there's an easy answer. But here's what I believe. When we become aware of these patterns, when we see how they influence us, how we think and act, well, then we start to have a choice.
So we can't get rid of the archetypes, but we can choose how to react to them.
Yes, we can choose to, embody the archetypes that bring people together, that promote creativity and compassion, instead of the ones that fuel fear and division.
That's a powerful thought. It's like we have a responsibility to not just understand this collective unconscious thing, but to make it better, to contribute to something, I don't know, more positive.
Exactly. And it starts with each of us doing our own work, facing those shadows, cultivating compassion and understanding. When we do that, we're contributing to a shift towards a more conscious, more interconnected world.
This whole conversation has been mind-blowing. I feel like I have a whole new way of seeing myself, the world, everything.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the start. This journey of understanding the collective unconscious, it's ongoing, it's full of twists and turns, and in the end, it's so rewarding.
It really is. And to our listeners, thank you so much for coming along with us on this deep dive into the collective unconscious. We hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did. Remember, there's always more to discover, more to question, and more to explore. So keep those minds open, stay curious, and keep on diving deep.